Are you a business owner stuck in fear, doubt, and worry about what the marketplace will look like in the future? Then this show is for you. Strap on your seatbelt and get ready to disrupt and innovate. Here's your host, Lisa Levy.
Today we have an essential conversation lined up with Oscar Vasquez, the founder of EstateDocPrep.com and a leading expert in estate planning. Do you know that 68% of Americans do not have a valid will or estate plan? Seriously, 68%. That means millions of families are at risk of costly and time-consuming probate battles that could strip away a significant portion of their hard-earned assets. Oscar is on a mission to educate and empower homeowners by helping them take simple but powerful steps to safeguard their legacy. He'll share real-life stories of how proper planning makes all the difference and show us why estate planning is for everyone who wants to protect their home, assets, and family. Oscar, welcome to the conversation.
Well, thank you, Lisa. Thank you so much for having me and allowing me to bring awareness to all the homeowners out there and help me on my crusade to educate the people so now they know what they don't know.
When I heard the stat that 68% of homeowners in America do not have their assets protected, I was absolutely floored. The whole purpose of this podcast is to disrupt people's status quo and help them make positive change. Sometimes we do that very specifically about their business, but this is a point for us as American homeowners that we need to talk about because it is a simple process and it can change everything. So, Oscar, tell us why it's so important now that that people understand and take care of this.
Well, I want to. That's a great question, and I'm going to tell you, it's important because it's always been important. But I think that the 68%, they just don't know. You don't know what you don't know. You don't know what happens to your stuff. You don't know who makes the final decisions. You realize that you kind of just think that everything's going to fall into place when you're gone, and they're going to kind of figure it out. Well, it's an important time for two reasons. One, things are getting much more expensive. They're getting excessive. I mean, when I first started helping, I've been in the real estate industry for 28 years. I've been helping people buy and sell homes. And the last 15 I've been I've been helping my current clients. And now we're bringing awareness out. The last few months we've been doing a lot of awareness campaign to educate the people when I heard the statistic of 68%. And I think it's an important time because we now have the oldest generation becoming older. We're starting to exit, and there's going to be a massive amount of transfer of wealth. And what we don't realize in that transfer of wealth, if we don't prepare it, it's not going to all transfer to the people that we intended to. And that's why I would say it's the number one reason to grab a pen. We're going to try to give you a 5-hour presentation in like 10 minutes and give you just the strong points of the things of why you need it, and then be able to prepare that.
Fabulous. Let's start with, since the numbers are so big, and yes, the oldest generation is getting ready to exit, and transfer of wealth is really the core of what we're talking about. Let's start with defining some things. What is probate?
Yeah, probate is what happens to your things if you do not have an estate plan, aka living trust. Before we get into probate, I want to explain the very bare basics in the shortest layman's terms of what a living trust is, because that document is so important that you understand what it is and how, and that way you'll know that's the only document that prevents you from going to probate. And so a living trust is basically all living trusts are created, not all living trusts are created equal. They all have to have provisions to have to have the tax consequences. They need to be what I call comprehensive. They need to be completed. They need to and they need to be completed. But a living trust is basically an agreement between you, the grantor or the trustee, and the beneficiaries, which are your kids. And it's basically a contract. They call it a contract because there's legal provisions that the courts help to enforce to make sure that the person that you left in charge or the child that you left in charge executes it according to your wishes. And it's a contract because the courts enforce it. One. Two, there is a living trust. So every living trust that is comprehensive is all the same except three things: the grantor, the beneficiary, the thing that they put into the trust, and the instructions, which that's four, right? But those four things are what's different in every living trust. And if the living trust is not a comprehensive living trust or totally complete, there could be some tax consequences. There could be some legal issues, and it can not work the way you intended it to be. So, knowing that, that's one thing that I like to tell people, because when you're comparing living trust, they got to be. I always tell people, how do you know it's comprehensive? Is because it has every single legal provision that exists to protect you. That's the first thing that you need to have. And not all the attorneys, all the living trusts don't have to be written by attorneys, just the legal provisions, just the meat and potatoes, because everything else is customized to your instructions to your kids on what happens, right? It's like, you're going out, you're leaving instructions to your kids. The only difference is when you leave a living trust, you're not coming back, right? I mean, that is just a nut. That is in the reality check. So there's a human delay that goes into that. Now, living trust is the only document that prevents you from going to probate. Now, probate, I'm going to remember a bunch of things happen, but because of the time sensitive, I'm going to go over the actual steps. The first step that happens when you die, if you do not have a living trust, the kids have to notify an attorney. And the attorney conversation goes something like, Lisa, mom died, but I can help you. It's going to cost you about 6 to 8% of your estate. You don't worry about paying me. You can pay me when you sell the house. Yes, that's correct. The kids may be forced to sell the house to pay for the attorney fees, because I'll give an example. In California, the average household now is $800,000. So let's call it $1 million for conversation's sake. That's $60,000 to $80,000 in just attorney and credit costs. One. So now the kids are devastated, like going, man, now we have to sell the house. Where are we moving to? Or, okay, if they don't live in the house, then great. They don't have that worry. Then the second thing that happens is that the courts have to publish your assets. The courts it becomes a public file. And that means that it's prone to scammers, because the public says, Oscar died, he died with this many properties, and he died with this much money in the bank. If you feel he owes you money, come forward, come to the hearing, or file your paperwork. Or if you feel that you're a descendant or a long-lost relative and feel that you're a beneficiary, come forward. That's the second. So it's prone to scammers. Now, I've had, out of all the things that I've seen, I've only had probably 2 or 3 scammers come forward and actually file something. But I think the smart one was where they filed a $3,500 claim, and the attorney says, well, it's going to cost $5,000 to fight the $3,500 claim. And the client's called and says, what do you think, Oscar? And I said, listen, it's going to delay your probate even more. One, two, it's giving good money after that. Count your losses, move on, and then get the thing done because you're in a financial bind. So it was cheaper just to pay the scammer than to move forward. The other one was $20,000, and I said, yeah, you got to fight that one. It didn't get very far. So that's the second thing that the probate gets because public. The third thing that happens is when you go to court, the judge makes the final decision on what happens to your things. The judge makes the final decision, and they're human. And I don't know if you guys ever been to any kind of court proceeding. They got to stack this big of cases. They don't know who you are. They don't know all the good things that you did in the community. They don't know anything about the kids. They don't know anything about anything. We are a case that needs to be addressed. Now, I've never had or seen or heard any judge say, you're Oscar's kids? Oh, no, we're not going to give you nothing. We're going to give this to them. No, I've never seen that. Every judge says, hey, who are the kids? Or do they have any inheritance? Or if the inheritance is the house, and then whose names are there? Somebody could be accidentally disinherited by accident, but if they're not involved with it. So imagine that, right? So the court makes the final decision. The third thing that happens is that there could be tax consequences that could arise from not having a living trust. And every tax person's situation is different, but I'll give you like a theory. A theory is that if when you have a living trust, you get a new tax basis. I want to talk about that. We have some time, but I want to talk. There could be tax consequences, which means that's another hit to your beneficiaries on the less expense, less inheritance than you intended them to have, that they're going to end up with if they have to pay taxes.
Okay, so Oscar, you've gone through several steps of what actually happens if there isn't a living trust in place. Talk to me a little bit about what it takes to put a living trust in place to protect your beneficiaries and your assets so they do not have to go through this process.
Great question. So the first thing is, I always tell people this. Whenever they call me from out of state, I say, do me a favor, go online and Google what is the threshold to go to probate in my state. And I'll give you an example. In California, it's 184,500. Every homeowner in California has more value than 184. In Indiana, it's $50,000. If your house is worth more than $50,000, you're going to probate. Colorado, 60. Utah is 100,000. I say that because that's the first thing. Do you need one? If you own a house, you need one. And the biggest misconception is that estate planning or living trust is for the wealthy. Guess what? I'm here to tell you that if you own a home, you are wealthy. It may not be the Ferraris and the jets, but you're wealthy. You're not cold at night and you have a place to go. That's being wealthy, right? So that's the people that need to. And the first thing that you need to do, there's 3 ways on how you can get an estate plan created, which is a living trust. One is the gold standard, which is hiring an attorney. An attorney is going to charge you anywhere from $4,000 to $10,000 is the bids that we've been getting to get it. When we started referring to attorneys about 10, 15 years ago, it was $600. Remember that? And when we started, when we created the software, we created it because we started talking to attorneys and they said, look, we're charging $4,000 or $5,000 now. I said, why? I said, one, do you realize that the probate cost is $60,000? He goes, Oscar, would you give $5,000 today if you knew for sure you were going to save $60,000 tomorrow? I'm like, absolutely. He goes, that's why. right? It's a common. I
But
said, okay,
there's still an easier way. So you've developed and you've brought to market estatedocprep.com. What does the platform do?
yeah, the platform does, it creates a comprehensive estate plan. It gives you all the documents for end of life, and it gives you the documents while you're still living so you can maximize it. It's a revocable living trust, which means it's changeable and you control everything in the trust while you're alive. And what we do is we do the third thing, which is the second thing is to be able to have a software, and you go in and you do it. 95% of the people that do a software on their own don't finish it because of the questions that come up and they don't know how to answer them or they don't have it. We have 100% success rate that of the people that have completed it because we do it with you. We meet with you 3 times via Zoom to be able to complete the actual process. And here's the thing, in any software, the hardest part is learning where to start, right? So we made it so simple, and then we're on the Zoom with you, so we teach you where to click, and then we give you bite sizes. So by the third call, you don't even need us anymore because you're like, okay, I got this, right? You become the software's expert. And so what you do is you go to state.prep.com and we walk you through the entire process. You're never alone. It's never intimidating, and there's never no doubt that your wishes will not be in the estate plan.
Oscar, that's fabulous because we all know that going down the path and trying to do this by ourselves, we are setting ourselves up for potential failure. And the worst part about that is the failure won't affect us. It'll affect our beneficiaries and create a headache and heartache down the line, and we won't be around to do anything about it. Creating a platform that has the done with you type of experience gives everybody the opportunity to learn and grow, so that as I'm learning how to create my estate plan and the revocable trust,
That's right.
I can then educate my beneficiaries about what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and how it impacts them so that they know what they're responsible for and what will happen when I'm gone. I love the done with you and having those 3 in-person interactions via Zoom. I am assuming that your platform is designed to work, you have state laws for all 50 states.
Yes, that is correct. And that's what I was going to say next. Every state, and you have to create the living trust where the state that you live in, that you reside in. And every state has their own legal probate provisions that need to be inserted into the trust. However, you could have properties in multiple states and it would be recognized and avoid probate with the one living trust that you have.
Absolutely fantastic. Are there any other pieces of advice or wisdom that you need to share with somebody who has not gone through this process yet?
Here's the thing. I got a gift. It's called estate.prep.com/guide. It's a comprehensive estate guide, estate planning guide. And this helps you to eliminate the human delay of the questions of what happens when this happens or what do I want. But full disclosure, just because you can fill out the estate guide doesn't mean you have a living trust. You got to get a living trust, right? And so we have that, and then we also have what's called we have a artificial intelligence AI voice where you can call in and ask any questions about estate planning at no cost, and that's 805-909-4689. And that, I give that because the AI will talk to you in English, Spanish, and French if you wanted to. Don't test it because, oh yeah, she'll keep talking. She's kind of like me. Just doesn't shut up. The portion of that I really, really like is that people don't feel intimidated. 1, 2, it always, at the end it says, is there any other question? You say no, then I'll ask you, do you want to speak to a human or do you want to make a call? And if they say no, they say, thank you very much, we're here to help. no sales whatsoever. It's there to provide value. And the third thing is those of you, we do have what makes us completely different than all other living trust softwares. In company one, not only are we affordable, but we offer what's called affordable payment plans starting as low as $100. So you can literally start your estate plan for $100. However, if you're feeling it, we also have what's called we have a discount code that for the first 10 listeners that want to protect their assets and their kids, we're going to give you a discount code of DISRUPT. DISRUPT is your discount code, and you will save $1,000 of the lifetime value of this estate plan. What does that mean? If you get in a living trust, it's a living document, you have to make changes. If you go to an attorney, it's going to pay $3,000 to get it done, and then every time you want to make a change, it's $2,000. With the software, you never have to pay that again. You pay it one time, $13.97 with the discount code. Now, mind you, this is only for the first 10 people. You get that, and you get unlimited updates for the rest of your life. However, at the end of the year, if in 2 years you decide that you want an update, there is a $129 fee that's how we help offset the expenses for all the attorneys throughout each state, so we can update the legal provisions. So we made it so affordable that you almost feel guilty not getting a living trust. I tell people, like, I want to think about it. I said, great, go talk to 5 people. Go ask for people to tell you their story of if they know anybody that went through probate. Oh, they do that.
All right, Oscar,
tomorrow.
Absolutely amazing generosity for the audience. Thank you so much for creating the discount code DISRUPT. We'll have that information in the show notes so that it's easy for people to find. I am still startled by the reality that 68% of American homeowners do not have a living trust in place for themselves. And that with this platform, estatedocprep.com, it is a done with you experience to protect your wealth, your assets, and your family's future. Oscar has shared stories with us about what the pain is of going through the probate process and how this will help you alleviate that regardless of what state you live in. All 50 states are covered. And it has been a fantastic conversation today, Oscar. Thank you so much for sharing your insight, your wisdom, and access to your platform. Audience members, you know my rules. Don't get left behind. Join me next time.
That's it for today's episode of Disrupt and Innovate. Head over to iTunes and subscribe to the show.